US President Donald Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg met Ukrainian President Zelenskyy in Kyiv. The goal to mend an unprecedented wartime rift between the US and Ukraine. But no major breakthroughs were announced. A planned joint press conference was abruptly cancelled at Washington's request. Zelensky later said on X that they discussed prisoners of war, battlefield updates, and security guarantees. Ukraine's president said his talks with US envoy Keith Kellogg restore hope for a deal with Washington, even as Trump's stance on the war sparks tension. Listen in to what Zelensky had to say.
Генерал Келлог, зустріч, яка відновлює надію, нам потрібні сильні угоди з Америкою, угоди, які справді спрацюють. Я доручив працювати швидко і дуже виважено. Економіка і безпека завжди мають йти поруч, і деталі угод мають значення. Чим краще прописані деталі, тим більше результат. Обговорили із генералом Келлогом фронт, необхідність звільнити всіх наших полонених, які утримуються в Росії, а також необхідність надійної і чіткої системи гарантій безпеки, щоб війна більше не повернулась і щоб росіяни не ламали життя. Мир потрібен всім нам – Україні, Європі, Америці, всім світі.
Trump, in office for just a month, wants a rapid end to the war. He has even held initial talks with Russia without involving Ukraine or its European allies. Vice President J.D. Vance says speaking to Moscow is the only way to stop the war, but European leaders are uneasy. Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz has also made it clear Zelensky's criticisms of Trump are unacceptable. Waltz says Ukraine must return to the negotiating table and revisit a minerals deal with the US. Listen in.
Zelenskyy publicly rejected this deal about the rare earth minerals. Where does that stand?
Well, we're going to continue to have, he needs to come back to the table, and we're going to continue to have discussions about where that deal is going.
Washington wants access to Ukraine's rich mineral reserves, critical for energy and tech industries, but Kyiv rejected an earlier proposal, citing a lack of security guarantees. Now, the Trump administration is drafting a simplified version of the deal. No word yet on whether Zelenskyy will sign. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio hinted that a Trump-Putin meeting could happen, but only if there's progress in ending the war. He said, and I quote, "You don't hold these meetings unless you know something is moving forward." End quote. Meanwhile, European leaders are ramping up defense spending. Some are even discussing a US-backed European peacekeeping force for Ukraine. French President Macron is set to meet Trump in Washington, warning him not to be weak on Putin. Trump has repeatedly called Zelenskyy a dictator. Why? Because Ukraine hasn't held elections since martial law was declared at the start of the war in 2022. Martial law grants emergency powers, making elections impossible. Zelensky's term officially ended in May 2024, but many Ukrainian leaders, including former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko, say postponing elections was necessary. However, opposition leader Petro Poroshenko has remained silent this time. His party accuses Zelenskyy of political repression, especially after the government imposed sanctions on him last week. On the battlefield, Russian forces continue their slow advance. NATO insists Ukraine must have strong security guarantees in any peace deal. But within Ukraine, political divisions are deepening. The war continues, the pressure mounts, but for now, there are more questions than answers. Stay tuned for more updates.